Well, hello, everybody, and welcome to the Digital to Dice podcast. I am Dave.
I'm Ron.
And Ron, we get episode 214 today. What do you got for us?
Motown. Hello, Detroit.
Is that R. Kelly? Is that R. Kelly? Who is that in Detroit?
Don't urinate on my parade there, Gardner.
There's some famous guy, rapper, or something like that from Detroit. I don't know who it is.
Eminem.
Is it Eminem?
It is 8 Mile Road.
Oh, okay. All right. So
you have now stretched the entirety of my rap hip-hop knowledge with that.
All right. So a little Detroit Rock City for you there today.
Bob Seger, Stevie Wonder, Diana Ross,
There you go. Look at you. We could do a whole music show. Maybe that's our new show, music.
Yeah, that'll go as long as enough to sing anything.
All right, so it's episode 214.
By the way, before you get into that, there has been some discussion of whether I know these area codes by heart.
Okay.
Which I did for New York and L.A. I mean, you watch enough television, you see 212 and 213. Or if I Google these area codes, except for New York and L.A., they get in Washington, they get Google. I'm not that clever.
Yeah, no, that's
just
a lot
so
to
people
remember.
Rest easy. I know how to use
I only
Google.
remember 555 was for the Brady Bunch. That's all I remember.
Klondike 5. There you go.
Yeah, Klondike 5. Anyway, ways to get a hold of us. Digitaltodice.com is the website. Digitaltodice.com is the website. 978-751-DICE is the text line. Digitaltodice@yahoo.com is a great way to get a hold of us by email. Over on Facebook, facebook.com/groups/digitaltodice. And if you'd like to support the show on Patreon, patreon.com/digitaltodice. Okay, that's all the introductions. Now, show 214, we're going to call this one, Ron, The End of Innocence.
Yes, and I won't sing Don Henley.
And we're going to talk about, do we have too many stats? Back in the day, the games were a little bit more simple. We had less stats. They were more enjoyable. And now they've gotten complex. They've gotten a lot more stats, a lot more things to talk about. And we're going to bring in an expert to join us this week to talk about The End of Innocence.
You mean someone who makes cards for a complex game is going to talk about The End of Innocence?
He is. And so joining us again on the show, we'd like to welcome Dave Arlington to the show. Dave, welcome back to the show.
Thank you, guys. Thanks, Ron. Thanks, Dave.
Well, thank you.
Now, the last time we had Dave on, we had him on and also Hockey Unreal, and we were talking Hockey Bones, as Dave's is the card creator over there for Hockey Bones. And so give us a little update. What's happening with Hockey Bones right now as far as the game and the seasons and the whole bit?
Yeah, so we've just put out recently 84-85 and 60-61 with our goal of filling everything in from 59-60 right up until the old face-off sets were available to the 98-99 season. Of course, we're doing all the current seasons as well. So we got plans for 61-62, 85-86, and then some people would be very happy. I do plan on getting a WHA set out this year. So
I've been really enjoying that. I've been playing that on app a little bit. Stone Cold Hockey and Action PC. I've really gone down the WHA rabbit hole, and it's been really fun to do that. Hey, so on these new sets, is it still all players carded on the new sets?
All players carded, right.
Okay. Now, there are some sets, I think I saw on the website, that don't have everyone carded, right?
Yeah, and that's because back when those sets were produced, they were still... there weren't PDFs. You bought a print set. And the expense of printing an extra 60, 70 cards to get these guys who played 5 or less games made the sets too expensive. So it was really the reason we didn't card them all then was because it just cost too much to put a set out. If I'm going to pay $40 for a set, versus $60 for a set. The only difference is I'm getting, 100 extra cards of guys who played 5 games or less. Maybe just give me the $40 set, right?
Now, there's not a lot of seasons like that, though. There's only a handful, right?
Yeah, those are all the original pre-PDF seasons that have been converted to PDF now, but haven't gone back and remade any of those.
No, so those are those like the 2010s seasons? Is that what it is?
Yeah, anything I'd say before 2013, 14, so anywhere from 98, 99 up through there, and the 68, 69 through 69, 70 set. I just remade 66, 67 because I found out that when they first made it, they didn't have shots on goal stats. So when the original set didn't have all the cards, so when I corrected the set, I added all the cards. So 67, 60, 66, 67. I guess if we make every WHA season and every Canada Cup that everybody wants, and maybe we'll go back and remake.
Yeah, well, I know most of the seasons I have. I think I have 68, 69, obviously 69, 70 for the Bruins. I got a lot of 70s, a couple of 80s, and now a couple of 90s. But I'm pretty sure every set that I have has all the players. I'm pretty sure. Maybe that's 68, 69. You said that might be one that doesn't?
Yeah, 68, 69, and 69, 70, yeah. 67, 68 is probably another one.
Okay, so there's just a handful, but most of them now have those. Okay, good. And you might correct those someday. That'd be kind of fun. One last question on the Hockey Bones. We were actually talking last night. I think I was streaming Hockey Bones last night. I was doing a slow play. A couple of people asked me to do a slow play video of Hockey Bones. There was a player, and it's a season that's coming in, 93-94. I just ordered 93-94. That's on the way. And a goalie that played with Ottawa and I think also the Boston Bruins, Daniel Berthiaume, okay? He played for the Ottawa Senators when they were new, their second season. He got in the game and played 39 seconds. And in those 39 seconds, he gave up 2 goals. So they must have put him in to relieve the goalie. He gave up 2 goals in 39 seconds on 2 shots, and they must have taken him immediately out of the game. When I went to Hockey Reference to check his stats, Ron, any idea what his goals against was for the season?
It wouldn't be, because the time factor wouldn't be infinity. It's triple digit, right?
It was 184 point something. His goals against was 184 goals against because he played 39 seconds and gave up 2 goals. And Dave says that goaltender is indeed carded in that season.
Yeah, so I was doing some math last night, right? So we round up to 1 minute. So when you see his card, he only has a goals against average of 120 goals against.
Only, 2 goals in a minute.
Yeah, and 39 seconds, right? So it's 2 time sequences in Hockey Bones. So for him to replicate his performance, the 2 shifts that he plays, or not, the 2 time sequences that he plays, you have to have a shot against them in both of them, and it'd have to be in range to match his performance.
Now, off the top of your head, is there anything on his card that would create a save?
There is one way down in the corner for the penalty shot possibility. That's it.
Oh, man.
That's one out of 215 chances for a save.
I wonder if I should play him in a game just to see how many goals are scored. I would imagine.
Now, you just did the Ron Lostel game with in Winnipeg.
Yeah.
And he actually won it.
He won it from, yeah. He was 18 years old. He played 1 game for Winnipeg at the end of the season when they were a bad team. And I played him in Hockey Bones. And they actually beat the Canucks. What was it, like 4-2 or something like that? They beat the Canucks. He didn't have any in-range chances, though. That was the thing. I think there were only 2 in-range chances, and they scored on them both. And just Vancouver rolled a bad game. Now, if Vancouver had, got 10 shots in range, they probably would have got the 9 or 10 goals on them again. But, yeah, in that game there, Winnipeg stepped up. They played a good game. Vancouver played bad, and Winnipeg actually won that game instead of losing that game. So, congratulations to Ron Lostel. In my replay, he won his only NHL game.
So I'll just mention that 60-61 set has the first instance of a Hockey Bones player getting both a skater card and a goalie card because Don Simmons was injured in a Bruins game with 1 minute to go, and they threw their second leading scorer, Jerry Topazzini. He finished second on the Bruins that year in scoring in the net for 1 minute. And that gave him a goalie card, but he didn't give up 2 goals. He didn't give up anything.
There you go, Gardner. You could do like an inter-squad scrimmage where you can try to shoot on yourself.
Yeah. Now, is there a possibility of scoring on him if I were to play him, or is he going to shut me down because he didn't allow a goal in real life?
But in this case, he didn't face any shots either, so he will not stop anything.
Oh, right?
Wow. Because the only ones that'll get that perfect is guys with 1,000%.
So the emergency goalie in Toronto, for instance, you can't score on him.
Right, but, the idea is you use him for the minutes that he played, and,
Right.
Okay. Interesting. All right. Well, Dave, thanks for getting us caught up there in hockey bones there. Of course, I'm going to have to play some of these people now, when the seasons come out. Anyway, all right. So let's slide on to the topic of the day. Oh, no, Ron, yes. You wanted to talk about something real quick.
I wanted, everyone kind of bets the Super Bowl. In Vermont, sports bet both are now legal online. And my mother is not real happy about that. And, I'm in my 50s and responsible, and I put in some money, and there's the allure of that. And I put in X amount of dollars, and they gave me $400 in free play, which is bad enough. It gets you hooked into there. And so I was showing someone today what it was. I did quite well with the free roll, and I tripled what I put in, and so I have some money to play with. But I just opened up one random basketball game for today. It really doesn't matter what it is. And it's not just spread money and over and under. You could probably make 40 or 50 different bets on one basketball game. The one I opened up was chances of a triple-double. And there was somebody they'd have given you 70-1. That on that. So a $10 bet would pay you $700. My concern with that is I don't want to be a fuddy-duddy because I beat a $5 bet today. But there is a rabbit hole, I think, you can go down where you think you can make money and the odds are in your favor, and it just is so easy, Dave. It is so
I can see how that could become addictive because I'm at the rink, and last night I'm at the rink run, right? And I see all the hockey players there between periods and the referees, and they're all on their phones. And I'm thinking, they're on Instagram. No, they're on
it's legal in Massachusetts too, isn't it?
Yeah, they're on the betting sites. They're checking scores of the game. They're seeing who's got goals, assists, and they're checking on their bets all night long. And I can see how that would be so addicting.
I just don't spend money you don't have, because as with anything else that's casino and gambling related, it all tilts toward the house. It's one thing to have fun. It was fun to have all the Super Bowl bets that we talked about. It wasn't my money. It was their money, and I'll take my $17 I won because the Chiefs won, and I bet them against the spread. But again, it's supposed to be fun. I could see at 22 years old why I would be in some serious trouble for that.
Yeah, me too.
Absolute serious trouble. Put the Celtics on and you get the chance. Oh, yeah, because you're young and stupid. I think Larry Bird's going to do 20, 10, and 5. What are you talking about? Yeah. And you put $20 that you don't have on it, and you got to hit all 3. If you're going to do that, be careful. It can get addictive, and we don't want to see anyone
I'm staying away from it because I have an addictive personality.
It's just in Vermont, you can't bet money you don't have. You can't put your credit card on it. It has to be off a debit card or that. The other silly, stupid thing, and then we can go on, is that I can bet pickleball or Chinese basketball live, but in Vermont, you can't legally bet on horses.
Interesting.
So I can't put $2 on the third race at Aqueduct and make $1.50 taking the favorite, but I can bet on pickleball. How in the world does that make any sense? Do you really think that I know more about pickleball than I do about the claimer at Woodbine, for crying out loud?
It's government. It doesn't make sense what they do.
I know it doesn't make sense.
It doesn't make
but
sense.
But please, we know that, this is a competitive, you guys are competitive out there that listens. As it gets legalized in more and more states, be careful with what you do with it, because you can legally bet except for horses. You can literally bet how many times that someone brushes the bottom of their shoes in a college basketball game.
Yeah, it's nuts. Yeah.
So again, that's just be careful with it. That was the point I wanted to make.
When you speak about triple double, I don't know what a triple double is. Only at the ice cream stand, I know what a triple double is. Yeah,
that's why we're both have sugar issues, right?
Yeah, and this is why PJ takes the over on food references on Digital to Dice.
That's right. And if you take the triple decker, it's not always vanilla, chocolate, and strawberry. The triple double is points, rebounds, and assists, technically. But it's anything you get 10 of.
Right. Okay, good for them. All right, so let's move on to the topic of the day. Thanks for Ron's rant.
Brought to you by FanDuel.
That's right. All right, Dave, let's switch back to you. You're the one that brought up this topic, and you brought up some really, really good some issues that we have here. So go ahead and talk about and explain what the end of Innocence actually means.
Well, in the last week or so, Kirk Berglund, who runs a very funny baseball game channel,
yes, he does,
has been talking about how great Replay Classic is. And I actually kept my original 1978 Replay Classic set. And I looked at it after this video and I'm going, why don't I play that anymore? And then I remember, like, when I first got it, it was the greatest thing, the greatest thing I had ever played. And then I must have started the 1978 full season replay, like, I swear, 5 times. So, like, I started with Replay Classic, and then somebody came out with a baseball game that included all the players, so I scrapped my replay and started all over again. And then somebody came out with a 1978 season that had all the players and ballpark effects, so I scrapped it and started again. And, like, every time somebody would add something new, and then by the time I got to the end of, like, I'm starting and it has all this stuff, but is it any more fun than when I had that original Replay Classic that didn't have all these things, when I was totally oblivious to knowing as played lineups and, how many times a guy did a put out at third base and things like that. Or same thing with my Stratomatic old timer teams that I had bought, which have all these classic teams of 41 Yankees, 27 Yankees, 53 Dodgers. I used to do tournaments with them all the time.
They're all done in basic too. They're not advanced or super advanced.
They're all basic one-sided cards, and you can bang out a game in like 10, 15 minutes, with complete stats. I'm like, but I don't play it because, I was like, but it's basic. They don't have left-right splits. The pitchers don't have endurance. Like, how can I play this? And I just feel like, do I know too much now? Like, you look at a lot of the games, like where has Stratomatic gone from when they started with basic to their super, super advanced game that they have today, if you throw in every single bell and whistle that they have. And same goes with Replay, where it went from Replay Classic to and I won't deny, excellent version that Pete Ventura puts out. Mm-hmm. It's fantastic. But it's almost like sometimes it's too much for me. And I'm just like, so I just shot that question over today. You guys must have discussed this already about, like, did we learn too much about our sports that we can't go back and enjoy these classic games anymore, that we have to demand that every game is the, epitome of having every stat known to man included in it?
Well, I start to wonder if there's a stigma in the community about a game being too basic, the Strat basic, the APA basic, and it's almost like time has passed that by. Like you said, now that we have all the more stats and things are, a much different than they were back in the day, and computers and all this other stuff. So now it's almost like you can't play that basic game anymore because we have all this new information that we can fine-tune the game to make it, quote, better. Do you think that might be it?
Yeah, and I think even it's kind of like people make it sound like, well, if you play the basic game, that's great for 12-year-olds. And, but I'm an adult, so you should be playing.
And again, I mean, Dave and I have talked a lot about, he prefers some things because everyone is carded. And when I started playing cards and dice game, I mean, my first set of strat, it was 25 players. And you were fine with the 25 players, and you liked it. And it was fine because more often than not, you were going to play with the players that you knew. And so, I mean, do you really, if you're a Red Sox fan in the late 80s, were you really going to play Eddie Urak over Wade Boggs at third? No, you were going to play Wade Boggs at third. And again, as we say, there's no wrong way to play. But, I think with the more basic and the stuff that we were limited to because of technology at the time, I think you were encouraged to use your imagination a little bit more. I mean, because everything is out there today. And again, there's nothing wrong with the fact that we can now do as plays in basketball and hockey. I'm not saying that that's wrong at all. But there's so much more spoon-fed for us. How much of that takes away from the game engine that we all uniquely have between our ears? And so when you play a game of Basic, because I know Dave Gardner that you really enjoy Strat Basic. It's a very good game at APA Basic, but again, I think that requires more of the power between your ears to make that work than as opposed to everything being spelled out for you. I guess that's where I'd start. Dave Gardner?
Yeah, and I think that that was one of the things I was thinking about earlier was how APA Basic has kind of stood the test of time. Like APA's never really felt that same need to keep improving, keep adding things, and people love it just as much. And I think you touch on a great point, Ron, because when you see people talking about their sessions of APA Basic, most of it is like they have these elaborate stories and who's selling popcorn in the stands, and they have it. The Apple players have such an imagination out of their basic game. They've never, and many games have come along that have taken Apple Basic and tried to improve it, like
National Pastime Next Generation Plus, yeah.
Or Skeeter Soft, or even Original Replay was like an offshoot of Apple. But and even the old guys like Stratomatic have had to change their games over the years to keep people interested. And Apple just seems bulletproof, especially for baseball and football, to just keep it the way it is, and everybody's happy, and they don't feel like they're playing a lesser game.
Well, even if you look at the Strat PC versions of their game, the only one that you can't play super advanced is baseball. And even then, you have to play the advanced game. You don't even have the option in the football, basketball, or hockey game to do anything but super advanced. Now, it does the bells, it does all the bookkeeping and tells you all that. But, if you want to learn just how to play the game, I mean, Dave and I were going back and forth about, I think he would like the advanced version of the game. However, when it comes to the fielding chart in the PC game for Strat, it doesn't animate the advance. The only fielding chart in Strat PC Baseball that is animated is a super advanced version, which doesn't do you any good if you're trying to learn the advanced and the basic. I mean, one of the reasons why I don't doll up my Strat games is I want that experience of having to use my imagination for where the players are and what the rinks look like, and which is different from how I do Action PC in my streams. I mean, again, I think the beauty of what got, for those of us who've been playing these forever, of what got us in was the fact that it encouraged us to use our imagination to play the games.
Yeah, Ron, I think that's a great approach for me to think about when I go back to my Stratomatic basic old-timer teams, is to stop worrying about the mechanics of the game and how it's put together and rely on the fact that, hey, it's Ty Cobb facing off against Lefty Gomez,
right,
or Ted Williams is facing down, Warren Spahn. So, look at it from that perspective of, hey, that's why you got these old-timer teams in the first place.
Right, and they've done that with the new Diamond Gem sets, but again, they're all rated for basic, advanced, and super advanced. I'm sure there's a basic side of those. So I'll ask you, Dave Gardner, because you're probably the newest of the three of us here. I know you play some basic games and some quick play games. What would you think if someone came out with like a Strat or an APA basic? We're only going to give you so many players. Again, not on a computer, because you can do so much more on a computer. But, like a Pocket Pennant Run only comes with so many players with the printed cards. What's your thought on that?
When it comes to that, I've been spoiled. Like I said, back in the day that you got so many players and that was it, whether it was, hockey or baseball, whatever it was. But now that we have games out here that card everyone, okay? And some card literally everyone, and some card, like 95 to 98% of them. If there's someone that get one at bat or one hockey game, maybe they didn't bother carding them. So technically it's not all carded, but it's pretty darn close. But, I gravitate towards those games because there are times I play differently than you, and we talk about that all the time. Yeah. You're okay not having everyone carded because you're not going to play, that guy instead of, that guy. You're going to play the top guy all the time.
Whatever it is.
Me, I like playing the Ron Lustells of the world, okay? I want to play a guy that's played one game in net and see how he does. I play the odd teams, I play the bottom teams. I like, my new season, the 80-81 season for APRA I picked up. It's got the Winnipeg Jets. I didn't realize he only won 9 games. So they're going to see a ton of time on my table because that's what I play. Now, when you ask the average gamer, they're not going to play the Winnipeg Jets with 9 wins. They're going to play, the Islanders that went all the way. They're going to play the Canadians and the teams like that. So I tend to play differently than other people. So for me, everyone carded is a big deal. Is it, the end all be all for me buying a game? No. Again, I just bought, some APA seasons, and I know that not everyone's carded. Ruth Stell is not carded in the 81 APA season, which is fine. That's okay. I will still get my enjoyment out of that season. But if I have the choice, I'm going to go with all the players carded.
But does that what makes for Shootout and Stone Cold work for you because you like both games?
They're quick play games. Again, those are quick play games. And sometimes you want to sit down and bang out a couple of games in a half hour, 45 minutes. And those games are perfect for that. They really are. But
my point being is that they're basic games, kind of like what Dave and I are talking about with the old Strat and the old APA. And not everyone is carded, but you get that because they're story-based games, you get that full experience. I mean, no, you're not going to know how many shots that Lustell stopped or whatever, or that, but I guess that would be the modern equivalent of what we're talking about, is that these games force you to use like Al Wilson's games, the Fast Drive Football and the Fast Hitting Baseball. They force you to use your imagination to make the games work.
I think the simpler the game, the more imagination, and the more complex the game. When I play a game like Inside the Crease, which I really like because it's a very deep hockey game. You're going every 20 seconds in Inside the Crease, which I believe of all the games that I played, that's the smallest time sequence.
Cards and dice, yeah.
Bones is 24, App is 30, and Strat is 40, and some other ones are a minute. So 20 seconds is a small time sequence. But in that 20 seconds, you're going to get block shots. You're going to get loose pucks. You're going to have battles in the corner. So you get all the little hockey things that I really, really like about the game. So so that's one way of looking at it. Getting back to the basic way of playing, so again, when Dave Arlington was talking about, back in the day, you got a basic game and that was it. I still prefer Strat Baseball Basic. I do. Mm-hmm. I just prefer it better. It works well for me. I can get to things quicker. As soon as I bump to I haven't played the super advanced except on the computer. When I play advanced baseball, it takes me a lot longer. There's a lot more thinking. I'm looking at the left-right splits. I got to make sure I'm looking at the right side of the card, and then I got to go. The error chart is much different on that. There's a lot of things that are much different than the basic, whereas the basic is bang, 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 and I can bang on a game and it's really fun. The same with APA Basic. APA Basic just works for me, and everything is kind of, quote, baked in, as you say, into APA Basic. And, even with the APA Hockey, I found that there's some things that are baked into APA Hockey. It's like, holy crap, I didn't realize that this was there, but it's in there, And I've never played the APA Master. I think I looked at the Merino boards one time, but then I tried to figure out, am I going to get any value out of this? If I'm going to take 20 minutes to play a game of APA, now I'm going to take a half hour to 40 minutes. Am I really gaining anything by playing it with more rules? And right. For me with baseball, not so much. And even with the APA Hockey, I've scaled back my APA Hockey to a more basic, streamlined approach, and I'm playing it faster and I'm having more fun right now. Now, that being said, I do like having the ability to add those extra options like dump-ins on the line change and, the long pass feature and the matchups and corner battles and things like that. I took all those out of the game to make the game flow a little bit better. So now I have a basic version of that I really enjoy. Status Pro, too. Status Pro, which I play on Digital Diamond, I play the basic mode, and I heard that they just released a master game or an advanced, I guess you will.
Someone's worked it and has a few seasons.
Yeah,
yes.
And I don't have any desire to even give that a try. I'm happy with the basic version of Status Pro that I play on Digital Diamond. Again, it's all included in the game. That's one big thing. But I enjoy it. I get my fun out of that. I really do. So for me, the basic games, especially with baseball, I really enjoy. I get enough baseball. I guess the thing for me is I get enough baseball out of a basic game. Mm-hmm. And maybe some people don't get enough baseball out of a basic game. Do you think that might be part of it too?
One of the things, because I was thinking about this when you were talking about quick play games, like you like having those games that have every guy so you can do those Ron spell games and things. I'm like, one of my big things is stats. So a lot of times a basic game won't give me enough stats, or a quick play game won't give me enough stats that will feed that hunger that I have for stats. So like even in a quick play game, I prefer something like Momentum Football from Downey or Player of the Game from Downey, where I can play a quick play game, but it gives me all the stats at the end, even if I'm like manufacturing them, just so I can look at them and go, oh, I have stats. I feel better.
I think we're all such a different, varied community that everyone plays for different reasons. And I don't want to be picking on people who play for certain reasons and while advocating for something else. I know that a couple times in Strat on the baseball, because when you buy a season, it gives you a bunch of options. You can go alls out, bells, whistle, as played, all the transactions in there. And then one of the options is as carded. And so even if you're playing the super advanced bells and whistles of the game, look, you got 25 players, and that's all you have, as if you bought the carded set for that particular season. And that gives you a completely different challenge because, again, going back to the Street and Smiths of the 70s and 80s, you are the manager. And again, there's absolutely nothing wrong with as played. I mean, I'm in the middle of my 6th year of an as played in action PC with all dolled up in ballparks and uniforms and all that. But I think there are just so many different ways to play that no, you shouldn't be picked on or feel that you should be forced to play in a way that you're not comfortable with playing.
There's definitely a guilt factor, I think, for the player to play an advanced game rather than just a basic game. And, there's times that I've streamed and there's times that other people have streamed and they've played either APA Basic or Strat Basic or whatever it is, whether, baseball, football, hockey, or whatever. And there's always the comment, why don't you play the advanced? Why don't you play super advanced? Why don't you play master? Why are you playing this game that's beneath me? Is kind of what the feeling I get. This game is this basic version, and like Dave Arlington said, this is good for if you're a 12-year-old, but you're an adult, so you need to step up your game and play something more complex. And
don't take the Flintstones. You're too old to take your Flintstones, right?
I can't have Flintstone chewables anymore. I have to take something that doesn't look like a dinosaur, because so this, I think there's some guilt in there. And I also think that maybe some of these games, do you think that there's a keeping up with the Joneses mentality with some of these games?
Oh, I think there is now, just because there are so many of us who stream and there's so many games out there, and I think people want to sample. And I think there is a misconception that basic means simple. And it may be simple to play, but people will tell you, and I would tend to agree, that the most statistically accurate version of HAPA is basic right out of the box. You may not think that you're going to get that because of the way that the pitchers are handled and how can a D do this and how can a C do that. But if you were to sit there and play out a single team and play what you could with it, you're going to be in the ballpark. And the beauty of APA, in my view, is its simplicity. A 13 is a strikeout, no matter, unless you, especially in this day and age, it's a strikeout no matter what. Yeah. And again, I think whatever gives you the best immersion. And sometimes you want to make the cake from scratch. And sometimes you just want to go to the store and go to the bakery section and grab the cupcakes.
Yeah, buy something off the shelf. Yeah, exactly right. Yeah, I see that. The guilt factor in there of playing the games. We talk about our D Jester a lot. He's a listener of the show and big in the community. And he was playing APA the other day, and he bought some new cards with the master symbols. He bought the master game. He was trying to play it. And it said it was taking him a couple of hours to play one APA baseball game. And he's just like, I don't know if I want to spend 2 hours on an APA baseball game when I can play one in 20 minutes in basic mode. And, what am I getting out of it? But he felt the need to play the master game. And it just frustrated the heck out of him to do that. But again, there was the guilt factor with that. The one thing I will say is I am a fan of the newer cards. Okay, I have a set of old APA cards, APA baseball. I have a set of old Strat cards, and then I also have newer sets. And let me tell you, I prefer the newer sets, how they're laid out, just how they look, just what they've added to them. Even if I don't use any of the extra symbols on these cards for either game, I like how they've updated the look of them. I really do. And even with the Hockey Bones, I've seen some of the old Hockey Bones face-off cards compared to the newer ones. The newer ones, the layout and the symbols and how it's done is just so much better. It's just, I don't want to say it feels modern, but it just feels better when you compare it to. So, and any game that I have right now that I happen to have an older set by chance, I don't even use the older set, and I know that some people love it because it's the classic, and it's again, that's the age of innocence we're kind of talking about here. But I do prefer the newer cards, even if I play basic mode. I don't know. What do you guys think?
Yeah, I think there is definitely some nostalgic flavor to. So, like, I can get a Stratomatic 1969 football set, that looks like all the other Stratomatic football sets. But boy, if I could find those old wide boy cards,
right,
that they originally came in, man, I would play with those any day just because of the nostalgia factor.
Moonlight Graham would like to have your 401k, and then he probably could get you one of those because that's how you'd have to cash it in to be able to afford one of those sets. I think that we all kind of get conditioned to having certain things. And so it's nice to have the stats on the screen or on the card. Whether you look at them all the time is another story. But, again, going back to you are the manager, I mean, if you read a card, if you look at an APA card and it's full of 24s and 13s, you know that you've either got a pitcher or, Don Wirt, for instance, who hit 139 or whatever. You know that's not good. But if you're new to the game, or if you just want to look to make that decision, I think there is a happy limit from not having enough information to having information overload. And I think because of what's available out there, I think today we go more towards that information overload. Look, you watch a football game on television, and after each play, they update the quarterback stats if he threw a pass. They update the receiver's stats if he caught the pass, or if it's a run, they'll tell you that Christian McCaffrey now has run the ball 10 times for 38 yards. We are so used to having all those stats available to us in real time on the screen that anything that kind of takes that away is going to throw you for a loop. Just personally, for that. Also, I think, to bring it down to hockey, you got someone, I know at APA, you have to be within, you can look to see what the shooting range is. So if you get someone that's a 1-1 or a 1-2, they're not a goal scorer. But my first tendency is going to go, okay, Jerry Hart's taking the shot. I'm going to look down. Oh, he scored 2 goals. This is great. Great, wonderful. I can't believe I get to shoot with him. That's that sort of thing. That's not necessarily the end of an Innocence type thing. I just think we're nostalgic to a degree, but you're not going to forsake the microwave to heat the meal in boiling water.
Do you think that when some of these companies got away from their basic game, and I'm not just picking on Strat and APA here, but any game that's tried to make their game a little bit more complex, a little bit more advanced, do you think it's possible to ruin the game or make it worse rather than make it better?
I think you can make a game too complex. To Strat and APA's credit, you can still play their basic games. One of the advantages of Strat is you can mix and match whatever level of complexity you want in the game, and it's completely playable. People have done that with APA, the Marina boards that he's talking about being a good example of here's what we think. Yes, I think you can make a game too complicated because you're trying to bow to pressure. I want to be able to do X, Y, and Z with a game.
Yeah.
Well, and because so much is available to us now, I mean, you're talking about even 25 years ago, turn of the century type stuff where most of this stuff was locked away behind a paywall at Stats or Elias that you paid thousands of dollars for that gets updated on a daily basis on the reference sites by 7 the next morning.
Yeah, I don't think it's a question of making the game worse. It's a question of how much will it extend the time or the mechanics, especially if you're playing cards and dice, and every dice roll you add is another time you have to pick up dice and throw them, which takes some time. Like, I've gotten quite a few emails about Hockey Bones where you have all these stats available. Why don't you add X to the game or Y to the game or Z to the game? And I go, look, in the heart of it, it's still a board game. And despite there being Excel flippers and Excel spreadsheets and Andy Lewis's flippers and all these things, I still have to assume that there's somebody playing who's picking up dice and rolling dice in a dice tower and checking the results, and I'm not going to add to that burden. It's complex enough as it is, and I'm not going to add anything that's going to add any more dice rolls or checks or charts you have to look at. You have to balance as a game designer between what can I do and what should I do to keep this playable within a reasonable time frame that people will say it's more work than playing a game.
Yeah. Now, you were just talking about, Dave, how you were you guys had upgraded some of the hockey bone cards or redid them or whatever we were going to use for that because, they didn't keep shots back then. You were talking about that. So you upgraded a couple of seasons because of that right there. Again, that probably made sense because maybe the cards, maybe you get them a little bit more accurate or whatever it is. But again, where do you draw the line that if they keep track of something else or they keep track of something else, at what point, do you say, jeepers, I can't keep, upgrading these because we got a pretty good game the way it is. And okay, that we wanted to upgrade these seasons because of something they added, but boy, I tell you, if they keep adding things, at some point we don't want to keep changing it.
Yeah, absolutely. I think somebody actually asked on Facebook, like, oh, the NHL is changing how they're keeping hit stats. And does that throw a monkey wrench in card design? And I said, as long as the hit stats are still relative to each other, like, the leaders are still the leaders and the low guys are still the low guys, it doesn't really have an effect because you're just putting it on a scale anyway. I think maybe upgrade's the wrong term. I mean, we couldn't make sets from 59-60 up through 66-67 only until recently when we had shots on goal stats and complete box scores from all these games. Because the only reason I could make 59-60 and 60-61 is a guy named Jim Grassi went through every single box score in these seasons and captured every single player's penalty statistics for me, so that we could make the accurate penalty things that are like our hallmark. So sometimes it's not just it's. So when I say upgrade, like, we haven't really changed the game mechanics, and that's what I'm trying to keep. Like, anything we upgrade or change is going to be behind the scenes and invisible to the end user. Like, I'm not going to add any more charts at this point. When Face-Off first came out, there were changes every year, and you couldn't play one season against the last season because the cards were different. So now we can actually take the sets that we've made and we can create great team sets because they're all made off the same platform and there's been no changes. So, they're not totally different cards.
Here's another thing. I think 95% of our listeners have played a PC game of some sort at some point. I'm sure if I didn't say 100 because I know there's someone's going to say, I've never touched a computer game. I'm going to use football as an example. That you can do certain things in computerized football games, set your number of blitzers, run your certain play, whatever, so on and so forth, because football is an incredibly complex game. You press a button, everything resolves itself. You go back to a cards and dice game. I'm going to use Action PC Football as an example, not picking on it. I mean, look, in that game, gentlemen, that you can, if you want 3 blitzers, you can. If you want to run any one of their 9 different defenses, you can. If you want to run any one of their 8 different run plays, you can, and it works because everything is done behind the scenes. And so we're used to that complexity. It's one of the reasons why I think football struggles on the tabletop is it's almost impossible to capture that complexity and get it into, I got to cross-reference this chart. I need to do this dice roll and that. Oh, I also have a penalty, so I've got to resolve the play and then resolve the penalty, and then it doesn't matter because it was offensive holding. I think some of that is there, and because of the power of computing and the creativity of game designers, we just get used to more and more complexity being in games than we ever thought that would be possible.
That kind of brings me back to something I just wrote down here while you guys were talking. Do you think, and Dave brought this up earlier about how, the old replay card game and going back to a simpler game. Do you think sometimes, maybe you got a tough day at work and you got a headache or whatever it is, and maybe the car broke down, and you come home and you want to play something. You're like, something? I just want to go back and play a simple game. And if it means pulling out Strat Basic or Appa Basic or even the old replay that you got there, rather than sit down with this game, maybe it's a newer game or it's an advanced game, my head is not going to be able to handle that. Maybe I just want to go back and just play a game tonight, and it's super simple. Do you think that could be part of it too?
We all want meatloaf. We all want that comfort food. We play these games for a reason, nostalgia, or to declutter. And again, I don't want to pick on anything that's complex because really there aren't any real bad games out there. But exactly for what you just said, I've had a bad day. The kids were bad after school, or I burnt dinner, or I got a flat tire, or any of the other 9,000 reasons. And yep, I am pulling out Old Reliable when everyone else goes to bed, and I'm going to spend another hour going back and just being comfortable playing something. It's kind of like doing the difference between the New York Times crossword puzzle and the one in TV Guide, if TV Guide still publishes crossword puzzles. Sometimes you want the challenge, and sometimes all you want to do is J.R. blank from Dallas. Right?
Yeah, I think my example there is like ASG Golf and Appa Golf, where if I just want to bang out a couple holes, I'll probably pull out ASG Golf. Whereas if I want to sit down and really dig into the meat and really analyze what I'm doing and take careful consideration of every shot I take, then I'm playing Appa Golf because it's more detailed and more options available. And sometimes you want the popcorn and sometimes you want the steak. So, yeah totally get that.
Right. I just saw today on Facebook Stone Cold Hockey, a game that I enjoy playing. I like the PC version because I can bang out a game real quick, and I do like the cards and dice version. It's really fun. They just added some tactic cards.
Oh, really?
Yeah. And I was watching the video today, and what they were doing is that you would roll a dice or die and look at a chart, and it says, which team, home or away, or both, and how many tactic cards you would pull out. And so he pulled out one for the home team, and it said goal-orientated. And what this tactic card did is, if you used it for the first period, it would up your control factor, I think it was, but bring down your defense. So you would there was more of a chance for you getting control of the puck for offensive chances, but your defense was lessened. So if the other team got the puck, so think the Edmonton Oilers, you know what I mean? All offense, no defense. And so he introduced these tactic cards, and I was following along. So that was one of them. Another one was something about a fighter where you could up your physical presence, but you would lose either your agitator or your fighter.
I would hope that would be optional.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. It is. But what I'm saying is, so here they are, a really fantastic, somewhat simple game. And they've added a new feature to it, completely optional, but they added a new feature to it. And I don't know how I felt about that. Because while at one point I was intrigued, but like, goal-orientated. Great, we're going to up the chances of scoring goals, but we're also going to up our chances of giving up goals because we're goal-orientated. Maybe our defenseman is pinching in deep and allowing for breaks the other way. I thought it was interesting, but at the same time, I'm like, don't wreck this game. This game is fantastic.
Don't go down the slippery slope.
I want to refer to an email. I'm not going to mention who it was from that I got a while ago, and this person was talking about Pocket Pennant Run, the first version, and it just hit the sweet spot. It was you can get a lot out of it, and we can make the argument whether the dead ball charts, I'm sure, were helpful, but the game was so basic in the fact that it got you where it went to, and you didn't even have to stir the meal in the microwave. When it was done, and you played a full baseball game. And he knew once people started to question about why isn't this in the game and why isn't that in the game, that it that this person was worried that it would get away from the original purpose of the game, which was,
Right.
look,
Yeah.
we're just doing the most basic thing ever and giving you all this. And I think that's where Dave Arlington's kind of go. Like, there's nothing wrong with just being basic. You don't need to be, I mean, it's great that they're out there. But to quote the Beatles, let it be.
I think if we want to get our food references up to the over for PJet, it's okay to have a hamburger. You don't necessarily need cheese and bacon and special sauce and lettuce and tomatoes. No, don't get me wrong. I do. Sometimes I'll make a sandwich here and I'll doll it up with tomatoes and lettuce and sauce. Oh, it's the best thing ever. And sometimes, like for lunch today, I slapped 2 pieces of ham on a piece of bread, and that was lunch. And it's fine. I'm full and it's good. So I was watching Stone Cold Hockey, and I'm worried that they were going to wreck this game. Now, again, it's completely optional, and it had me intrigued, and maybe it would make it interesting that, hey, I'm going to kind of up my offense a little bit, and maybe that's something that you could just add into the game without flipping for cards. Maybe you could just say, look, I want to up my offense here in the third period and down by a couple goals, but I'm also going to have my defense come down. And maybe that's kind of an advanced rule for that game, is that you can play one of these cards to try to, maybe you want to bring the offense down and bring your defense up to protect the lead late in the game. Or was that already built into the game?
I suppose the other thing is that as people kind of add layers of complexity to their games, inadvertently, I think they are telling people, whether they mean to or not, that there is something wrong with their base game. The only thing wrong with Strat's base game is they forgot to put hit by pitch on the batter's card. I mean, that's a pretty egregious error, if you ask me. But there is nothing wrong with the APA basic game as it plays. But so I think that. So when you see new and improved, okay, yeah, it's nice that you did A, B, and C, and I might use A, B, and C, but there's nothing wrong with Ivory soap. There's nothing wrong with Crest toothpaste, and there's nothing wrong with drinking a bottle of water.
Yeah. Dave, you put this the best earlier when you said APA's bulletproof. Their basic game is so good. So there's something to be said for a game that doesn't change.
Yeah, absolutely. And I would be lying if I said that wasn't part of the goal, like we're trying with Hockey Bones. Is like, boy, I would love it if it was as bulletproof as APA baseball or even APA football, right? Like Ron said, football's hard to get to the tabletop, but and I don't play APA football yet. But boy, the people who love it. And for all the people who say something about how, and it is super hard to get a football game on the tabletop, though I got to tell you this quick story. Back in 1971 or 70 or 71, my friends and I drafted all those Stratomatic football teams and created a league. You got to take 2 good teams and you had to take a 500 sub team. So everybody wasn't all just playing the great temes. And we went through the whole season, and nobody cared that Stratomatic didn't even have penalties then. Like a football game that didn't even have penalties. And, we didn't care. We were just
that's a feature, not a bug.
Yeah.
Oh, well. All right, yeah, so we want to keep it simple. And like Dave said, sometimes if you change the game and you can't have seasons against seasons, then that kind of defeats the purpose of making it better, because now you've alienated everybody that has the old seasons, and you don't want to do that. One thing that we do need to do in Hockey Bones is when, not if, but when you come up with the WHA season, right? I'm kind of hoping I can still put Bobby Orr on the Philadelphia Blazers like I did in a couple of other games. I'm hoping he'll be compatible with that season so I can see how he does.
Yeah, you'll be able to do that, sure.
It's been fun. I did that with Action PC, and I did it with Franchise Hockey Manager. Just kind of put ore on the 72-73 Philadelphia Blazers with Sanderson and McKenzie, just to see how. And of course, he got a goal and assist in his first game, but the team is still, they're 500 at best. They're still, even with Bobby Orr, they're still a 500 team in all my replays with that. It's just been kind of fun, though.
Well, I just want to say you guys have really helped me get over my reticence of pulling out these old games. So if you see me posting about that one-game playoff between the Red Sox and the Yankees from 1978 with Replay Classic, or the 41 Yankees against the 61 Yankees and Stratomatic Basic, yeah, take a little pat on the back.
I will be over to your house. I will go be over to your house to bury Bucky dead, okay?
I know.
I got one more question, and then I think Dave's about ready to wrap up. Is there a reason why 5960 is the limit and not, anything like 58? Is there something that in 5960 had available that, let's say, 58, 59 didn't?
Shots on goal.
Shots on goal, okay.
And who knows? I have not checked yet to see, if box scores are available, because you could always get it that way, I suppose.
The Hockey News Archive that.
Yep. There's that now.
Okay, so I just wasn't sure why you specifically mentioned that as the cutoff, and that would make sense. Shots on goal are important.
Yeah, super important.
Okay. All righty, so let's wrap up here in episode 214. We were talking about the end of Innocence, how, games have gotten away from some simple basic play to carding everybody to advanced and master games and new cards and symbols and new ways of playing it. And, was there anything lost along the way, I guess, is what we're talking about here when we talk about the end of Innocence. So, again, we want everybody to chime in and let us know your thoughts on that. Do you still play the basic game, or do you only play the advanced and the master games? What is your favorite and why? And just let us know in the comments as you usually do. Ron, we got our 3 stars. We should probably get to that. All right, here we go. So, again, we want to thank everybody who supports the show on Patreon, and we're going to bring out our 3 stars here in episode 214 in no particular order. Number 3 is Tony B.
Woohoo!
Tony, thank you so much for supporting the show. You are our 3rd star this week. Number 2, his name is Sinistrality, but I think his name is Mark. Thank you so much for being star number 2.
Thank you.
Mark, thank you so much. And number 1 star, no stranger to the show, and we see him on our Facebook group all the time. Number 1 star is Glenn Victor.
Yay!
Glenn, thank you so much for supporting the show and all that you do and all the contributions you make to the show and the community. All righty, so any final words before we wrap things up? Dave, you're the guest. Any final words?
No, I just thank you guys for discussing this topic with me today. I feel a lot better about enjoying my games without guilt now for the old classics, and that's what I was hoping to get. So,
well, thank you for coming on. We appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you so much. All righty. So you've been listening to the Digital to Dice podcast, episode 214, The End of Innocence. We were joined by Dave Arlington and talked about, where have the games gone since back in the day with the simplistic versions of the games. Ways to get a hold of us at digitaltodice.com is the website. 978-751-DICE is the text line. digitaltodice@yahoo.com is the email. And over on Facebook, facebook.com/groups/digitaltodice. Come on over and join the discussion. Dave, once again, thanks for coming on the show.
Glad to be here. Thanks for having me.
And Ron, thanks for coming on again.
As always.
One more food reference gets us the over.
Michigan dogs.
Whatever that is.
You've never had Michigan dogs?
No.
It's a special, since this is the Detroit episode of the show, 214. It's a sauce that we put on hot dogs here in the apparently northeast. Essentially, it's a chili sauce.
Really?
With a little bit of spice. And so we call them Michigan dogs.
Okay.
Don't ask me why. I don't know if that's for Michigan or not. It's kind of like, this will put us well over the over. French fries being from Belgium and Belgian waffles not being Belgian, but it's called Michigan sauce. It's essentially it's a chili sauce without beans on a hot dog.
And that's why you are here.
You're
Good night,
welcome.
everyone.
Bye-bye. Good night, Detroit.